A new study found that Gen Z is not thriving in their lives compared with previous generations.
Sometimes I think to myself, what do I want to do for work when I'm older? What do I want to do? And then I realize I'm already older. Do you know what I mean? Like, this was supposed to be figured out by now.
I'm 22 years old and I don't know what the fuck I want to do with my life.
I graduate uni this year, don't have a job lined up, and I still live with my parents.
Is it just me, or does it feel like Gen Z is like one of the most unhappy generations right now? Like, I'm personally Gen Z, and I feel that no matter what I've already achieved in my life, I'm still not happy.
Whatever you want, you decide, you pick.
You choose! Do not do that to me. I can't choose and I can never choose.
I am terrified of making decisions I'll regret in the future. Cannot make a decision.
Kids are not resilient. They're not resilient. If they were, we would have less people with anxiety, depression, general unhappiness, but we don't.
Our teenagers and university students of today, they don't have the experience of grit.
We're all feeling this universal feeling that we just don't care because at the end of the day, nothing really matters. Truly, like, what are we doing with our lives?
For you.
It doesn't take much to see that Gen Z is scared of getting older. Just look at their obsession with skincare routines or the full-on roast sessions on TikTok for anyone over the age of 30 without Botox. But no matter how much retinol they slather on at night, they can't just stop growing up. Or can they? Because Gen Z will certainly try to anyway. They took the millennial not wanting to adult starter pack and then decided to go all in, taking longer to reach adulthood and relying more on their parents than any generations past. Between putting off every major life milestone, dodging commitments like a bad first date, and cocooning themselves from things that are hard, Gen Z is working overtime to try and stop the clock before they hit 21. But with mantras like "you've got plenty of time" and "don't settle" ringing in their ears, it's no wonder that they find themselves stuck in a loop of decision paralysis. And often, even when they want to take a move forward, they can't convince themselves to take that first step. So it's time to get into it, how Gen Z knows so much but does so little, and why they're so reluctant to step out into the world and grow up. Now, we know that the teenage mind is still one under construction. Their brains are still in that stage of rapid growth, and the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that handles judgment and impulse control, is only half-baked. So it's no surprise that historically, teens have always hit the gas before the brake in terms of decision-making. What's interesting now, though, is that this natural part of growing up just isn't happening as much anymore, and it feels like we're living in this weird time where children are quick to take on adult personas and aesthetics, but are reluctant to actually take action in adult responsibilities when they come of age. They just don't seem to want to take that first step and break out into the world and start building real independence.
Honey, I think we need to buy a house. I've been thinking about it. Buying a home right now is a smart investment for us and the kids. If I just went to sleep right now, I wouldn't have to spend money on dinner.
Rather, left on their own, they're more prone to settling into the glow of their phones. Honestly, aren't we all though? But as said here, they're slowing down and they're in less of a hurry to do the kind of anxiety-provoking things that adults do. And we're finding these trends to be true across economic and social spectrums. This isn't just a white upper middle class phenomenon. We see this in things like the declining number of teenagers learning to drive, as just under 40% of teenagers aged 16 to 19 had their licenses in 2021, a 24% decline since 1995, my birth year, if you care. But I remember as teenagers, getting your driver's license was like the most important thing in high school. It meant no more relying on parents for rides, late night hangouts without permission were possible, and suddenly the whole city was within reach. But that's just something that teenagers aren't interested in anymore. And this is just one example of a mix of adult things that young adults just aren't pursuing. Fewer young adult men ages 16 to 24 are settled into permanent jobs, and fewer men and women are married with children today than in the 1950s. And that's not to say that these life choices are necessarily for everyone, just that overall, there's a lot less urgency to meet these milestones. Take this Gen Z's perspective, for instance. Elise Monsanto plans to get around to some of the grown-up milestones that generally mark early adulthood. She's just not in a rush. She didn't get her driver's license until she was 20. She and her friends haven't had their first boyfriends. Now, at 22, she doesn't drink, though she's sure at some point she will. And she continues to say, "I think it's more of a hesitancy thing, a little bit scared to start. I guess the same thing with driving." And she's not alone in this, as this is the general consensus and mindset for most of modern young adults. Whether it's taking on financial responsibilities, moving out of your family home, entering long-term relationships, or anything in between, they just want to figure it out when it comes up.
So I've been living with my boyfriend for a year. We moved to a new city and he got a job at a university. I've been trying to get him to get on the health insurance there. It's like a university program. I've been nudging him to do it for months. We've been here for like 6 months now, and he doesn't seem to be able to do it. And then I learned that he actually hasn't even like been to the dentist in like 20 years. Can't seem to get his health insurance set up. I keep saying, okay, let's sit down and do it. Let's sit down and do it. I'm so tired of it.
But while more kids these days seem to be struggling to launch into adulthood, this isn't a novice phenomenon. We first saw this concept of a failure to launch come up with the introduction of Peter Pan syndrome in 1983 by American psychologist Dr. Dan Killey. In his book, The Peter Pan Syndrome: Men Who Never Grow Up, he describes emotionally stunted men who struggle with relationships, commitment, and responsibility. People with characteristics of Peter Pan syndrome may find it challenging to adopt adult responsibilities. They have difficulty maintaining healthy relationships and have a fond nostalgia for their youth. While most people may occasionally long for the simplicity of childhood, people with Peter Pan syndrome can have difficulty living a typical adult life. But while it's tempting to use Peter Pan syndrome as a catch-all explanation for what's going on, the reality of what we're dealing with is a bit more nuanced. Rather than young adults never truly growing up, this period of time between teenagehood and adulthood has seemed to just be drawing out longer than normal. Jeffrey Arnett, an American psychologist who studies the transition from adolescence to adulthood, proposed that people in this stage of life weren't even full adults. Instead, they were emerging adults, finding their place in a world that no longer held just one or two possible paths. When he first coined the term, he set the age range at 18 to 25. He now considers this stage of life to last until about age 29. He says people are taking longer to find a stable place in the adult world. So basically, 29 is the new 21 these days. And this emerging adulthood stage is all about figuring out who you are, career-wise, romantically, and even how you present yourself to the world. And what better way to experiment with your identity than trying on different versions of yourself through scent. Sorry for the cheesy transition, but that's where Scentbird comes in. Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service with a mission to empower each and every person to express themselves through scent. They offer monthly subscriptions that let you explore over 900 authentic designer and niche fragrances. Each month you receive an 8 milliliter vial, providing about 120 sprays, which is plenty enough to try it out and see how you like it in various situations. But the best part of it is how affordable it is. When you sign up, you get their first fragrance for only $8, and then your next month, it's only $16.95. But let's get into the fragrances I picked out. First of all, we have Dead Cool fragrance number 1. It has keynotes of bergamot, vanilla, and amber. The combination gives a warm, sweet scent while also being light and fresh. Oh God. So good. Definitely an everyday scent for me. Dead Cool is also a clean fragrance, which brings me to the next feature that I love, which is that you can actually filter for clean fragrances. And that's something that's really important to me because I want to be able to know what I'm putting on my body. And each scent does actually come with these cool little pamphlets, and it has the whole ingredient list on here, which again, I really appreciate. And then I also got the Elise Shoo Shoo. This one again is sweet, but not too sweet, and definitely more of a woodsy vibe, which I think is really fun for date nights. I just think that Scentbird is a really cool service that you get the flexibility to change your fragrance every month and avoid committing to the cost of a full-sized bottle. So if you would like to try and find your signature scent, Scentbird is offering 55% off your first month. Use code EMBERS at checkout or scan the QR code on the screen. Like I mentioned, your first fragrance from Scentbird is only $8, and then your next month is $16.95. Again, that's EMBERS for 55% off, or scan the QR code on the screen. One of the reasons why kids are taking their time growing up is because, well, they've been raised that way. In somewhat of an unexpected twist, the extra nurturing and increased supervision that is known of Gen Z childhoods has actually contributed to a slower, more cautious approach to adulthood. Rather than speeding up their independence, this added support can sometimes lead to a more sluggish transition as they take longer to navigate life's milestones on their own.
Many Gen Xers, for example, grew up with a lot of trauma. Our parents were immigrants often, they were new to this country, they were coming from different situations, and they brought what they knew to be right to us. Many of us are parenting our kids, and we've been trying to avoid traumatizing our kids the way we were traumatized. In doing so, we've created very cushy lives for them. I often joke that my kids live on an all-inclusive resort. We had a lot of hustle. We had a lot of desire to get out of the house. We had a lot of desire to get a job and pay for things for ourselves because our parents weren't going to buy them for us. This generation is so used to just getting what they want that they completely avoid situations they might be in that cause rejection. I'm generalizing here, of course, but for the most part, what I see in Gen Z is a real fear of rejection, a real fear of risk-taking, a real lack of resilience, amazing emotional language, pretty healthy self-esteem, but the inability to go headfirst into something that's difficult or challenging.
This is because, for one, the decreased birth rates we've been seeing over the years has changed the way that parents raise their children. Funny enough, you would think that less children means more time to raise them well, but actually it can lead to coddling if you're not using that time and effort properly. As parents have fewer children and later in life, they nurture them more carefully, which in turn delays independence. Gen Z has been under more adult supervision than previous generations. Their playdates were carefully watched. Their parents have monitored their whereabouts on their phones, which may be safer, but means they're not figuring things out on their own. While there are plenty of problems with having too many kids, like neglect, one positive thing that does come out of it is that it almost forces their children to grow up quicker because they need the kids to take on more responsibilities for the household to function. And I'm by no means saying that we all need to get on the 18 kids and counting train for our children to succeed, but it is something that parents with a gaggle of children don't have to think about because it just naturally happens. When we aren't aware of how much hand-holding we're giving our children, then we accidentally are preventing learning opportunities for them, and they miss the chance to make the next steps in their development. Because while it's normal for a parent to help their child, say, make their first resume, it's not normal for a parent to call an employer after an interview to reinforce their child's application, something I've experienced in the workplace before. Parents, beginning with my generation of boomers, have invested more of their self-worth in their children's success. When a young adult is struggling, parents may unintentionally become more overprotective, over-involved, or intervene in ways that undermine the young adult's ability to succeed. Most parents provide love and nurturance, but often don't offer the backbone to say no or exhibit confidence in the young adult to step up to the challenge.
We've all heard of the helicopter parent, right? This is the parent who's always at school meetings, doing all of the talking and double checking the homework. Their intention is usually to protect and support their child, but research has shown that sometimes this can cause children to feel anxious and can actually hinder their ability to develop independence and problem-solving skills of their own.
Overall, parents these days are doing more and more for their children with honest hearts of just trying to help, but they're really hindering their children's ability to take on the skill set when they're supposed to learn it, not when they're 25. It's not enough anymore to get your kid dressed, feed them, and send them off to school. Raising a child is a 24/7 preoccupation. A child's success in life, the new thinking goes, relies on a series of carefully orchestrated opportunities provided by parents who believe a child's future prosperity rides on the right choice of mommy and me class. The supercharged involvement continues throughout childhood. Parents spend all their waking hours crafting emails to teachers about how their kids learn best, hopping from one activity to the next, hoping to discover their child's thing, and diving into rabbit holes of internet research about the right way to get their kid to eat their vegetables. I feel a little bit called out. Another factor worth mentioning, and one that I've brought up before, is the noticeable decline in independent play among children. But this isn't just for their emotional and social development, it also plays a crucial role in building independence. Kids need time alone to play without advice or interruption so that they can learn to navigate challenges and build resilience on their own. Because if you see your child playing and about to fail at something and you stop them before it happens, then they aren't going to, first of all, learn the consequences of that failure, but also learn that failing isn't the end of the world. Of course, this is all within reason, and you should still set your child up to not seriously hurt themselves. But if, say, another kid is playing a way that your child doesn't like, and you solve that conflict for them every time, then they won't learn how to speak up and stand up for themselves.
I give the kids enough time to be in the productive struggle, and I know this because I'm seeing their behavior issues and their patience issues, and they think that when they need help, they're going to get it right away. And so we need to normalize saying, hey, I see that you're frustrated with this thing. It's just that I can't help you right now, and I would like you to try it by yourself. Because I think there's this misconception that if you're not actively on top of a kid teaching them 24/7 during the workday, that you are somehow a bad teacher. And that's not true. Some of these kids need to be in the struggle and learn what that feels like on their own.
The purpose of childhood is to allow kids to take risks, things that involve getting all kinds of hurt, and to practice the skills they will need as adults while they're still safely under their parents' roof. Childhood exists to allow kids to hazard an unpredictable friend, lose a ball game, stand up to a bully, pick themselves up, offer another kid a hand. We want them to venture out and get their hearts broken, try and fail, and at last succeed, all while we're still in the next bedroom. That's what a happy childhood is, experiencing all the pains of adulthood in smaller doses so that they build up immunity to the poison of heartache and loss. And I must say that quote is a little bit intense, I feel anyways, like a little bit too much pick yourself up by the bootstraps, but I think the general idea is still good. With that, I did read the book Bad Therapy in preparation for this video, and I do recommend it because it has a lot of interesting insights, but I also think it was a little bit problematic in some areas. I just wanted to share that in case you're also interested in reading it. I don't give my full support. Anyways, moving on. It was still good. But to expand on this idea, while it only makes sense for us parents to want to protect our kids from the hurt in the world because hurt is what traumatizes children, the pains of childhood are still essential to growing up. None of us want our kids to go against the rules, but experimentation shaped who we are. When we were kids, we had to go through rough times. Rites of passage tested the mettle of our beliefs. We look at our children and worry they'll never break out of the cocoon if they never break anything. We wonder what we've done wrong or that something's wrong with this generation.
Do you want independent kids? Well, Eastern European moms have been doing this forever and without gentle parents and Pinterest boards. Back home, you're taught to figure it out. No one is hovering over with a backup toy and a snack every 5 minutes. If you fall, you get up. If you get bored, well, you'll figure it out. By age of 4 or 5, you're already folding laundry, setting up the table, helping cook. Not as chores, but because you're part of this family. It builds ownership, not entitlement.
Kids need to fail and fail hard when it still doesn't matter. That's why jobs as teenagers are so important, because if you screw up inventory or are late for the 3rd time and get fired, thank God that lesson was learned when you were working at Wendy's as opposed to your first big corporate gig. Kids are supposed to mess up, like having fallouts with friends, flunking tests, and getting cut from the volleyball team, because that's what teaches them how to adapt and keep moving forward. In the end, they discover that the feeling of loss or failure doesn't last forever, or that they're capable of pushing through to succeed the next time. It also makes them less scared and better able to navigate and assess risks in the future. And so small failures and injuries help children rather than hurt them. I also know it's so much easier said than done, like when you're watching your child about to make a mistake and you just have to let them do it. It's not a good time, but the kids need it. This also goes right in line with parents being more scared for their children than ever before, as the increase in child-related crimes and news have been shoved down our throats for decades now, so it would only make sense that parents are more scared to let their kids do things like walk to the corner store alone. Parents are more hesitant. They're less comfortable allowing their children to be uncomfortable. Confidence and skills such as problem solving and conflict resolution are born from discomfort, which parents and schools increasingly shield children and teens from. This has some good effects. Young people are cultured and sensitive and aware of what's going on in the world. It's a positive that they're not drinking and are avoiding what are generally considered negative outcomes, such as teen pregnancy, but it also means that they're having a hard time fully leaving the nest and are more anxious.
So what are some of these things that could be like overprotective? Not letting you meet friends if they don't know everything about them and know their family, and keep you in the house and not allow you opportunities to socialize. It could look like you are not allowed to gain milestones of freedom in order to gain independence. So that can be one of the things where they restrict you too much and hinder your growth and make you in turn even more dependent on them.
The problem is when parents don't let their kids get uncomfortable or try hard things when they're ready, keyword ready, those moments may never come. Children's brains are wired to chase independence that feels just out of reach, something new and exciting and slightly challenging. If that window is missed, however, the drive to stretch themselves can fade. For example, offering your 9-year-old the opportunity to run into a store on their own and grab some milk can feel like an exciting adventure. It's unfamiliar, slightly outside of their comfort zone, and gives them a sense of real responsibility. But on the other hand, asking a 16-year-old to do the same thing just doesn't carry the same weight, because by then it's well within their realm of capability and not a novelty, so the opportunity to build independence has already passed. What this means is that you need to give kids a chance at independence at the right time when they pique interest, or they won't take it. As said in Bad Therapy, I talked to mothers who had forbidden their kids to walk around the neighborhoods when they were little. By the time the kids turned 13, they couldn't be dislodged from the house. Having been trained to accept the crammed confines of a cage, by the time the door is flung open, when he's eligible to get his driver license, say, he may have surrendered to his captivity. As I was writing this, I actually realized that a version of that happened to me last week when my 4-year-old did a whole shower routine on his own, which I guess if you're not a mom of young kids, like, might not seem like that big of a deal. But it was the first time that he didn't ask for any help and went from being covered in mud to putting his fresh clothes on in his room. And I was honestly so proud of him. Like, obviously kids grow and learn these things, but working on this video made me think about how easy it would have been to keep doing parts of the routine for him just out of habit and not giving him a shot at all. But the point being that no amount of begging and scolding children to do tasks is going to make them want to do it. And so you need to seize the opportunity of when they're ready for it. As this student says, look, by the time my parents felt it was safe for me to play outside, I was like 13 and had no interest in playing outside. That period was completely missed. It never happened. And what happens next to these kids that don't get to practice independence is they end up with less self-confidence, have worse social skills, are less tolerant of uncertainty, and overall are less resilient. I really love this quote on the matter. We assumed with perfect faith and wholly without evidence that gentler parenting could only produce thriving kids. Shouldn't flowers bloom in powdered sugar? Turns out they grow best in dirt. Something else that's unique to Gen Z is that they're the generation that has the most mental health awareness and yet are arguably struggling the most. For a generation that's mantra is everyone needs therapy, they haven't really made many mental health strides themselves, when we're looking at statistics anyway. They talk of wellness while also downward spiraling into the most unwell, depressed, and anxious generation in recent history. A 2023 Gallup survey found that almost half of Gen Zers, ages 12 to 26, often or always feel anxious, and more than 1 in 5 often or always feel depressed. They're also more likely to report that they've received treatment or therapy from a mental health professional, compared with 26% of Gen Xers, 22% of baby boomers, and 15% of older adults. And in comparison, this study shows that younger adults belonging to Gen Z were a more psychologically vulnerable population compared to older adults belonging to the baby boomer cohort, who demonstrated more resiliency in mental health outcomes. Now, I need to clarify that this isn't to discount all the benefits of mental health awareness that Gen Z has normalized, and there's also so many external reasons for the mental health decline as we live in, at least I think, is a unique time with unique challenges. But at least one of the reasons Gen Z is behind other generations in terms of mental health is because for a lot of them, they seem to be too stuck in the past to make any moves forward. Because the thing with therapy, warning, I'm about to hate on therapy a little bit, but give me a chance. The thing with therapy is that it's not in fact universally good and can in certain circumstances do more harm than good. Besides the classic problem of picking the wrong therapist or using the wrong techniques in sessions, we're also seeing how being over-therapized can backfire and sometimes make problems worse. Because there is a fine line between processing an experience to make it manageable and reliving it and re-traumatizing yourself.
Did you know that talk therapy can actually be re-traumatizing for trauma, and that you cannot, in fact, heal your trauma by talking about it? And that's because trauma is not stored consciously. It's deep back in subcortical, subconscious part of the brain, and it is stored as physical sensations in the body.
As said here, there's a type of talking about a traumatic event, usually a breakup or a situation where the subject feels they've been wronged and are certain they were in the right, that sounds obsessional to the listener. When someone is obsessive about talking about their injury, it sounds like they are feeding rather diminishing it. When we get fed up with our friends doing this, we may say that they are milking it. This is the psychological equivalent of scratching a mosquito bite. If you don't stop scratching it, it is going to continue to itch and may become infected. And this part of today's video is brought to you by a corrupt audio file. The rest of this video was recorded without audio, and so I'm back the next day. We're gonna finish it off. Thanks for bearing with me, I guess. But anywho, where we were was the discrepancy here is that dwelling on the past is bad for our mental health, as we just sit in the sadness and struggle, making it harder to shift our mindset towards moving forward. While yes, it's obviously important to talk through our issues and not bottle things up, it's equally as important to take a breath and move on in life as well.
There are 3 places that you can live in your life. You can live in the past, the present, or the future. And a lot of people focus on the past, and it creates a lot of pain, and it creates a lot of blockages to even bring forth your dreams and your goals in your present. One thing we have to do is look at our past, accept it for what it is, learn from it, and use that in our present power to create a future that we want.
It's important to put trauma in the past, otherwise a life can be lived as though it is still happening when it is in fact over. If you process the experience in a way that puts distance between then and now, you can lead a fuller life in the present and be freer of your past. And that's the problem with Gen Z that I've also been sucked into, is the idea of therapy for life, because it shouldn't be normal to be in therapy for life, and you should be having these conversations with your therapist about an end date, because that's the whole point, is getting coping skills and applying them and then moving on. Easier said than done, obviously. But this idea that every person has trauma is most likely exaggerated and can even mess with our resilience. Reminiscing with a friend, cracking a joke with your spouse you wouldn't dare make with anyone else, helping your cousin box up her apartment without talking about your problems often aids recovery far more than sitting around in a room full of sad people. Therapy can hijack our normal processes of resilience, interrupting our psyche's ability to heal itself in its own way at its own time. Think of it this way: group therapy for those who experienced loss or disaster forces the coping to hang out with the sad. This may make the relatively resilient sadder and prompt the sad to stew. The most dejected steer the ship to planet misery, with everyone else trapped inside.
And I run into this a lot with people who've been in therapy a long time. Here's my thought. If you've been in therapy for 10 years and it's not getting any better, find another therapist or try something else. Problem with therapy is that it tends to be very cognitive based. What I mean by that is that people can spend a lot of time analyzing themselves, examining their thought process, getting a lot of insight, which is good, but sometimes at the end of the day, all you get is more insight. Do you actually feel any better?
And so it's being said that ruminating on the past is one of the ways preventing young adults from taking the next step in life, because either they feel held back from what happened to them because it feels so much in real time because they keep focusing on it, or they just can't think past it because it takes up so much mental space. It's the difference between adopting an action mindset versus a state mindset. The action mindset means you're focusing on the task at hand and making moves to progress to your goals, whereas the state mindset is where you can't get out of your head and your emotions enough to get the ball rolling in life. And I don't want to put a label on everyone who goes to therapy, because obviously that's not the case, but we do see a lot of young people holding on to what's happened to them as their identity and not being able to see past it. When we use our trauma as a shield from the world's expectations, we end up stuck. Our minds stay in survival mode, and growing into the next chapter becomes increasingly impossible. Because resilience isn't something that experts can help you build in a 1-hour session. Growth comes from moving through life, facing challenges, and surmounting them. And that's how humans have always done it. Rise above the obstacles and focus on the future. Ask any millennial who had a keep calm and carry on poster in their locker in 2010. But perhaps the biggest factor preventing Gen Z from making progress towards their future is the overwhelming sense of decision paralysis. We know that 1 in 4 people around the world struggle with feelings of decision paralysis, with 53% feeling ill-equipped to manage decisions, and 29% feeling that even the smallest doubt can stop them from taking action.
Ever since 2021-22, I swear something in my chemistry has changed, which maybe it's because of given events that we all went through the year prior. But I used to be so motivated, driven, and would get things done so quick. And now I'm noticing a pattern in myself in multiple different scenarios. With decision making, I'm having the worst decision paralysis and not being able to trust myself on my decisions and just thinking that there's too many good options, so I can't just like choose one and miss out on the other.
For one, we live in a day and age where we have the most access to information than any generation before, and with that comes every possible life path you could take. We can see behind the curtain of the rich and famous, the living abroad, the simple family homestead, the touring musician, and any and every job in between. We've come a long way from the days of job fairs in high school where your options only looked like either IT guy, electrician, nurse, or policeman. Nowadays, we've never had so many options for life paths, and so we often don't pick any out of fear of picking the wrong one. It's the same way that Trader Joe's has found success by offering only one ketchup option. People are far more likely to buy ketchup because they aren't overwhelmed by their choices.
I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but I'm the kind of person that tries to see everything from a different lens. I think to have a fully informed and educated opinion, you need to have different perspectives. But lately I've been having a lot of trouble in my personal life because I cannot make a decision for the life of me. And the reason for this is because I try to consider many different perspectives, and whenever I think about an answer, I'm like, well, actually, this could apply too though. But it sucks because I really don't want to make the wrong decision about things, and it's hard to take that leap without considering all different aspects and perspectives to things. Honestly, sometimes I think I'm introspective to a fault. Because sometimes I'm worried that I'm going to make the wrong decision simply because I did not think about all of the possibilities with it. But in turn, that starts inhibiting me because now I'm stuck in this position of being indecisive.
It may seem like a surface problem for many Gen Zs who are often regarded as the headstrong generation to be indecisive. But there's more than meets the eye when it comes to the struggle of making decisions and the consequences of being unable to decide on something that could have an impact on your personal or professional life. A new study by HSBC found Gen Z is struggling with decision making and confidence more than any other generation. A third of Gen Zs spoken to feel paralyzed by uncertainty when it's time to act, and 62% feel ill-equipped to manage the decisions they have to make in their personal and professional lives.
Just had a bit of a mental breakdown. I don't know why. I felt like I wanted to share how I've been feeling. I'm really struggling with like not knowing what I'm doing and like not having everything figured out. I feel like a bit of a failure because I just had these like grand plans for my life and it's just not turned out that way. I'm only 24 and I know I've still got like time for it to fall into place, but it's just so hard to not constantly be comparing yourself to other people.
This also plays into another problem Gen Z has with decisions, which is potential anxiety. It's the fear of not living up to your full potential, and it's fueled by everything from economic uncertainty and social pressures to, perhaps most of all, the constant comparison on social media.
This is what it actually feels like to be 26 years old. I wake up in the morning every single day and I'm like, you have 24 hours. You have to make the most of this time. Time is only going forward. You're only getting older. The only thing standing between you and your goals is going out to get them. You need to put your mind on right. You need to stay motivated. You need to stay alert. You have to go out and get everything that you've ever hoped and dreamed for because this is your one life. This is your one chance. Like, you cannot take a second for granted. And then I take a deep breath at some point during the day and I'm like, wait a second, this is a floating rock, nothing is real, it's probably a simulation, we're all gonna die anyway. Isn't the only point to love and be loved in return? Like, why am I so concerned with all this other stuff? And then I'm so overwhelmed by my thoughts that I open up the Instagram app and it seems like everybody else is running the rat race, but they're also looking super hot and having a lot of fun while doing it. Everybody's getting skinnier. What is going on? And then I take one simple scroll through my Instagram feed or whatever the fuck, and it's the worst news you've ever read in your entire life. And you're like, okay, so you close the Instagram app and then you sit and wonder for a while, am I the only 26-year-old going on 27, turning 27 in a month? Oh my God, am I the only 26, 27-year-old in the entire world who has no idea what's going on and is just in this existential cycle of dread every single day? And then I think to myself, well, when my mother was 27, she had a 1-year-old and that 1-year-old was me. And I have so many options, which is a massive privilege. Technically, we all have free will. You can do whatever you want, quit your job, do this, call this person, go on this app, go here, move here, do that, change career paths. But it's like, when you have decision fatigue, it's kind of tough. So I'm gonna try this probiotic yogurt because someone on the internet told me that I should. Great, and it's disgusting. Great.
Gen Z feels so much pressure to pick a meaningful path and not squander their opportunities because they see everyone online living perfectly fulfilling lives. But this really leaves them feeling uncertain of their own future, and so they'd rather choose nothing at all than face the disappointment of choosing incorrectly. And with that, any commitment feels less like a win and more like a loss of freedom as you've written off any other option out there. But to find any sort of success, you do have to make sacrifices. Whether that's picking a different college than your friends, giving up your dream of being a lead guitarist for a 9-to-5 stable job, or moving across the country for love, life is full of these trade-offs. And sometimes it's not even about giving up a bad option, but choosing between two equally great ones. A perfect example of this is anyone who played multiple sports growing up. At some point, if you wanted to get serious about one sport, you likely had to give the other one up for the time slot. But if the fear of missing out is too strong and you try and keep doing everything, you end up going nowhere. In the worst case, this fear can lead to a total resistance to commitment because it starts to feel like a permanent trap. So instead, you end up constantly chasing new possibilities, hoping one will feel just right without ever settling on anything.
I think there are two phases to building the life you want, and a lot of people start in the second phase, which is asking themselves, what do I want to do with my life? And I think this is a mistake because in order to make an informed decision about what you want to do based on who you are, your values, where you want to go in life, you have to have enough data about what you're interested in and what your values are. And the only way you can figure that out is by doing shit and fucking up, but most importantly, trying. And I think that there is this tendency for young people, myself included, to spend all of their time waiting for the perfect idea or plan or opportunity to present itself to you, when the reality is that's just never going to happen.
Tying it back to the Peter Pans, they don't want to grow up because they don't want to lose their ability to fly, even if there are great things on the ground. I really should have watched Peter Pan before writing this because I feel like I could have made a better comparison if I actually knew the plot of the story, but moving on. Point being, the problem is that growing up requires giving up some of your potential. And that may sound sad on the surface, but it actually is for the best. Because if you want to live a full life, you need to close off some opportunities. You can't be the world traveler and homesteader and Wall Street finance bro all at once. Choosing a direction doesn't limit your life, it deepens it. Letting go of some of your potential isn't a loss, it's how you build a stronger identity and sense of self. On top of that, we don't actually have much of a choice because whether we like it or not, doors close as we get older. The athletic opportunities fade away, the dating pool shrinks, and the bold financial risks dwindle as the stakes get higher in life. That is why we need to decide early on what doors you're okay with closing, because before you know it, they're slamming all around you. Funny enough, this was something that I was processing over the past year, probably why I thought of it as a topic, but it's interesting getting into your 30s and seeing everyone around you kind of settle into life and into their paths. I kind of had to lament the fact that we've all lost our 20s wanderlust, which sounds depressing, but I think it's just a reality that people have big dreams when they're 21, and while you can still be dreaming at 31, some of the potential has either been taken away or walked away from. But I did come to realize that it is not a bad thing. The life that we live now is shaped by the choices we made chasing those dreams at 21. Obviously, not all of them came true, and they probably weren't supposed to, but it is the dreaming that got us here, and that's cool. Even if there isn't as much a beautiful unknown in our future, we still get to enjoy the fruits of our dreaming labor that got us here. So I do want to mention that I did skip over a lot of the reasons why Gen Z is supposedly not growing up, and that's for a reason. Things like the increased cost of living play a huge role, but I've talked about that so much, I didn't want to get all into it again, but we can't expect the same life that our parents had because it's a different time. The world is different, so we're different. Also, of course, this is not speaking for everyone in Gen Z. It's a trend, and trends don't account for everyone. We still have very ambitious and successful Gen Zers. Also, when young adults take longer to achieve the markers of adulthood, it's not necessarily their fault, but is a result of the world that they grew up in, and I think you can see that from everything we discussed today. But overall, I do think that we as a generation, I like to flip-flop between millennials or Gen Z, depending how I'm feeling, feeling. But as a Gen Zer today, we need to stop waiting for things to be perfect to make a move. Otherwise, you never will. We grew up with this idea that you can chase your dreams and achieve anything, but that doesn't mean that there aren't sacrifices along the way. And the more you chase a perfect life, the more disappointed you'll be. But that's all I have for you today. Make sure you check out Scentbird and use code EMBERS for 55% off your first month. Also, make sure you subscribe if you want more video essays like this. I wish you a week of taking chances and making moves towards the life that you wish to live. Bye!
I guess this is like the definition of following your intuition. The only thing I have planned in my life right now is just like a feeling. Like I just have a feeling. So you just follow that feeling. And it, you know, it might get you into some debt. Who cares? We're on a floating rock. I don't give good advice, okay?